From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 5:30, streaming now.
Now at 5:30, as the new session of the legislature begins, a plan up for debate among lawmakers is who should oversee IMPD. We talk with one of the senators introducing this idea. And another event is disrupted by the pandemic, but right now it's only postponed. The new dates to go bargain hunting in Indy. Chris.
Topping the lineup, the latest stimulus package is expected to keep some music venues from closing for good. We're taking a look at how this money could also help businesses nearby. And blood donations for pets are down because of the pandemic, but demand is up. What's driving that and the concern if more donations don't start coming in? And the pandemic's driving thefts of a car part that is really expensive to replace. We'll talk about what these are after and how you can protect your ride.
And now first at 5:30, it's the first Monday in January, and that means members of Indiana's General Assembly return to work today to begin the new session. One of the issues to be debated this session, who should oversee the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department? A new bill in the legislature is seeking a state board to manage Metro Police. The move comes as IMPD faced a record level of homicides in 2020. Senators Jack Sandlin of Indianapolis and Scott Baldwin of Noblesville are behind Senate Bill 168. Both are former police officers. The two Republicans would require that a 5-member board be made up of the mayor and 4 people appointed by the governor to run IMPD. If the bill is approved by the legislature, the board would oversee Metro Police by January 1st of the year 2023. Senator Sandlin spoke with our Rafael Sanchez.
Is there that appetite to tell a mayor, we want your police department, we think we can do it better?
You know, I don't see it as a takeover. I see it as an opportunity to provide better service to our community, our visitors, and our businesses.
But you are telling a mayor who normally appoints a police chief, who normally oversees a police department, we think we can do it better. What does that say about the mayor of Indianapolis?
The mayor wanted to be the mayor of public safety. I'm not sure that that's been successful. I think that instead of dragging this out, we need to look at opportunities to improve the city and the state. And this is a recommendation that's been filed in the legislature.
So what is your message then to the workforce, the 1,700 men and women, the city's finest, who will now be looking at this in this new year? What do you say to them?
You cannot have a good police department. You cannot have good community relations, in my opinion, unless you have trust on all sides of that. And this is a way to kind of reestablish or rebuild the trust among the community and the police department and help professionalize the department at the same time.
Senator Sandlin, thank you for joining us. I appreciate your time and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you.
Again, if the bill makes it through the State House, the board would take over January 1st of the year 2023. Several years ago, a similar attempt to run IMPD with the board was tried and dropped. Kevin.
And what a way to start the work week. Hopefully you enjoyed all that sunshine and relatively mild temperatures in the 40s. As you look from our Weather Now camera to the west, you can see the orange glow on the horizon. 5:34, by the way, is our sunset time. And big news today, of course, that we'll be hosting the Ncaa Championships. So as you look at the JW Marriott, it'll be interesting to see what they come up with for March Madness. They always seem to put some kind of wrap on the windows. 42 in Indy, 37 in St. Louis. When you look from St. Louis to Peoria and Chicago, there's a weather system just west of that line that will swing through, bring us a light wintry mix overnight. I say light. There are no advisories, not expecting a big impact, but any impact during the morning commute obviously is something to keep track of. So we'll do that. A lot of fog over in central and northern Illinois, too. Temperatures, they will drop below freezing by tomorrow morning. We'll be down to 31 at 7 a.m. From 7 to 9 a.m., probably our coldest part. We'll wake up and move only about 7 degrees from morning low to afternoon high. 38 will be the high temperature. The northwest wind at around 15. We won't be able to shake the clouds the way it looks now, so we won't repeat another sunny afternoon like many of us enjoyed today. We'll have to wait until later in the week. Chris.
Dr. Anthony Fauci says he is hopeful the U.S. will improve vaccination rates in the coming weeks. Right now, the U.S. sits at about 4 million people vaccinated, and that includes nearly 1.5 million in just the past 3 days. The head of Operation Warp Speed telling CBS around 18 million doses have been shipped nationwide. Dr. Fauci says he believes that President-elect Biden's plan to vaccinate 100 million people in his first 100 days in office is possible. Meanwhile, the United Kingdom hitting another milestone when it comes to the vaccine. Now, this is an 82-year-old man who is the first person to get the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. Now, this comes as the nation is dealing with a surge in COVID cases, including a variant of the virus. Here in the United States, a Colorado girl spent New Year's at home after a rare inflammatory condition that infects kids forced her to spend Christmas in intensive care. Kylie Caldwell's parents were diagnosed with COVID in mid-November. Now, when she showed no symptoms, her parents thought that she avoided the virus. So when she had an upset stomach just a week before Christmas, she and her parents thought it was just something she ate. But by the week of Christmas, she was in the hospital, and by Christmas Day, in intensive care.
I didn't know when I was going home. I didn't know if I was going to feel better. I didn't know a bunch of things, but we just kind of had to hope.
I didn't know what was going to happen. You know, it was terrifying as a mother. I couldn't do anything to make her feel better. You know, my husband and I spent the entire time she was in the hospital there with her, and you feel helpless. You can't help your child.
Kylie was dealing with what's called Miss C. Some of the symptoms do include a fever and gastrointestinal issues. Doctors say multiple systems of the body become inflamed and illness can impact heart function. But doctors can only make the diagnosis if there is evidence of a previous COVID infection or a known exposure.
And usually what we see is kids will have an infection about anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks before they present with this new syndrome. And then infection can be a mild infection or even an asymptomatic infection, and that could still lead to this syndrome.
Dr. Sam Dominguez is a pediatric infectious disease specialist at Children's Hospital, Colorado. He says they saw about 20 cases in December compared to just about 4 or 5 in October. Now, since the start of the pandemic, he says there have been about 1,300 nationwide. Now, still ahead in our lineup, thieves are targeting your car in this pandemic, and there's a specific part there after we will tell you what you need to be looking out for.
2991.
Now, we're seeing an increase in the demand that thieves have for this car part right here. Catalytic converters. Thefts in cities across the country are up. You're taking a look at just one of the latest postings that is warning about it. This is from a sheriff's office in North Carolina. The National Insurance Crime Bureau doesn't have exact numbers on these thefts because it says that it's just really hard to track catalytic converters specifically, but it is noticing the trend.
Precious metals, as far as the cost, are at some of the highest levels in history right now. And it usually occurs when there's a worldwide crisis. The COVID pandemic is exactly it.
For some perspective on that, gold selling for around $1,900 an ounce. Rhodium, which is one metal used in catalytic converters, is selling for around $16,000 an ounce. Now, David Glawi is a former undersecretary and chief intelligence officer for the Department of Homeland Security. And all of this is giving him some insight into how global organized crime groups work.
We may be seeing here is involving catalytic converters on a local level and selling at the scrap metal yards, or for them to be recycled or to pull the precious metals out of them. The global industry in precious metals involves criminal organizations throughout the world. It involves terrorist organizations. It is a high value supply chain that can fund many organizations.
He says thieves can remove the catalytic converter from your car in just minutes. It is important to park your car in an area where as many people can see it as possible. And if you're parking in your driveway, he says add a motion sensor light. Also set your car alarm because it may go off if there's movement under your car if a thief's trying to take that part out. The average replacement cost is about $1,000 to $1,500. Now, still to come in our lineup, new money in the latest stimulus package will help keep the lights on at some music venues. We'll talk about how that money is also expected to help some of the businesses that are nearby.
Forecast on your time.
President Trump and President-elect Biden are both in Georgia today, making a final pitch ahead of tomorrow's runoff. Many changes Americans are waiting for across the country will depend on who's elected in this runoff, and Alexa Liaco is showing us the incredible efforts being made to make sure every vote is counted.
History is yet again knocking on Georgia's door. A birthplace for civil rights and equality is now a final battleground for the nation's Senate.
Everybody has their eyes here on Georgia.
This moment, months in the making for organizer Macy Hall.
We started off with the primaries, traveling all the way from Houston to Atlanta.
Now she and voting rights advocates from March On are crossing the state of Georgia ahead of the highly contested Senate runoff.
We have so much work to get done, especially here in the state of Georgia.
Their first step, getting voters to the polls Tuesday.
Right now, it's a lot of things that we can't control, but what we can control is our vote and our voice.
And Hall is using her voice to fight for
voter protection, voter education, and really combating voter suppression.
But she's not the only one speaking up.
This election is just as important as the presidential election.
Whether it's in-person events like this, encouraging people to come get their questions answered, or broadcasts on Facebook Live, organizers are out in Georgia like never before to get people to come out and vote. And that's because what happens in this Senate runoff will touch every single American.
Members of the TPS Alliance came from all over the country to ask voters to help start a new era for immigration policies.
I'm just doing this for my community and to stay with my parents and fight for my human rights.
The outcome of this vote could change Rebecca Vasquez's life.
This would mean that I would get to stay here with my family, with my parents. This would mean that I would get to go to college. My mom would get to, I'm only 15, so my mom would get to see me walk across the stage, at my graduation. So it would mean everything to me. It's my future we're talking about here.
Immigration policies, healthcare policies, and environmental laws for the entire nation could all see changes this year, depending on how Georgia votes. Democratic challengers John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock are up against Republican incumbents Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue. The actions of organizers are already paying off. The runoff election has already seen record-breaking early voter turnout, especially with minority voters. But all of these activists agree their work is only beginning.
We want to ensure that moving forward, the work that we've done now with this runoff election is going to continue on.
A vote for Georgians with power far beyond state lines. I'm Alexa Liaco reporting.
Bargain hunters are going to have to put their plans on hold. Another event is postponed due to the pandemic. The Indianapolis garage sale and marketplace will not take place this weekend as planned. Due to the increase in COVID-19 cases, the annual event at the State Fairgrounds has been moved to May 1st and 2nd. It was originally set for this coming weekend. You are still expected to be able to shop hundreds of booths with low prices on the new days. You still have time to book a booth if you want to sell items. Kevin.
Well, Amanda, we've had just about 3 inches, under 3 inches, 2.7 to be exact, of snow so far this season. Last year at this time, we had 10 inches of snow. If you look at the country, you can't find any Arctic air, that's for sure. It's still 38 in Minneapolis, 65 in Dallas. Warm spot down in southern Florida, where you would expect it, at 72 degrees. We'll see no big temperature swings this week. We're pretty locked in the 30s for highs, close to the average temperature for this time of year. Going, gone as far as the setting sun is concerned. Temperatures will drop off tonight as we go through the overnight hours. Hang on here one second. There we go. I'm just trying to get my computer to switch here. Catch up. My computer was back in 2020, just for a second. Clouds returning as we speak, especially western Indiana, 1 a.m. to 9 a.m. That wintry mix, and it will be light, but may have an impact on spots first thing in the morning. There's the ribbon of very light snow that you see from Quincy over toward Davenport, Iowa, and then Madison, Wisconsin. That will continue to drop to the south and east. The wind is light out of the southwest right now, but during the day tomorrow, it will come out of the northwest. Temperatures lower 30s, just below the freezing mark first thing in the morning, 36 at noon. as we go through the afternoon tomorrow. Temperatures don't change a lot. They may nudge their way into the middle to upper 30s in spots. Cooler to the north. Logansport, Marion, examples of that at 34. Anywhere along Interstate 70, temperature in the neighborhood of 38 degrees. And south of that, still in the 30s, not quite to 40. We don't have temperatures in the 7-day forecast that reach 40 degrees or above. Wednesday, the only difference, we should be dry throughout the entire day, whereas tomorrow we have a little wintry mix in the morning. But the clouds dominate again, and the temperatures hold in the upper 30s. We'll look beyond as we start thinking about the weekend. You can never think about the weekend too early. We'll talk about what little changes arrive by then, coming up in just a little bit. Chris?
Newsfeed starts with some nuclear concerns about Iran. The country started the process of enriching uranium to 20%. This is just another breach of the 2015 deal that it made with world powers, and this is happening after tensions forced the U.S. to turn an aircraft carrier around in the Persian Gulf. A new chapter in the saga of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. A British judge is rejecting a U.S. request to send him to the United States. Assange is facing a charge in the U.S. for publishing classified documents. More than 200 Google employees are unionizing. They have had disagreements with executives with Google's parent company, Alphabet. Employees say Alphabet has not done enough when it comes to issues like sexual misconduct in the workplace. One school is working to make sure its students can get tested for COVID when they need to. UC San Diego has put out vending machines with test kits. Process is pretty simple. You just grab a kit, swab outside, and then return the vial within 3 days. These tests are free to students and staff. We'll call it a love story that's been born out of this pandemic. Bob Parrish lives in Kentucky. He has not seen his wife in months because she lives in a long-term care facility. So he started writing her a letter at least twice a week. The facility where she lived turned those letters into a book.
I mean, I was just doing what I thought I needed to be doing to try to put a little bit of happiness in Becky's life.
He says as soon as a 90-year-old can get vaccinated in his state, he will get it so he can see his wife again. Well, wouldn't it be nice to go see a concert again? Well, while you do still have to wait a little bit longer, there is now some help on the way for perhaps your favorite music venue. Hundreds have closed across the country since March, but as Chris Conti shows us, some much-needed relief for venues is on the way from Congress.
More and more venues have gone under.
There is something unsettling about the silence. Silence, which consumes stages and theaters across the country.
It's been absolutely heartbreaking, but they just couldn't hold on any longer.
Silence that motivated Audrey Fix-Schaefer to speak up in whatever way she could.
Our workers can't work. We would love to have them back, but we're shuttered.
Audrey is with the National Independent Venue Association, a group which didn't exist before the pandemic. But as COVID forced the closure of thousands of music venues across the country, this nonprofit began lobbying Congress hard for help. And they got it in the form of $15 billion in stimulus aid.
The reason why this got so much bipartisan support, which we know is a rarity nowadays, is that because these small businesses are not just music places or comedy spots, but they are the economic engines of the local communities.
12 million across the country have jobs tied to live events. And for every dollar spent on a ticket at small venues, a total of $12 in economic activity is generated within communities on things like restaurants, hotels, taxis, and retail establishments.
It was, pretty obvious that if we went dark forever, so would so many of the other businesses around them.
From back rent to mortgages to utility bills, the money will be distributed by the Small Business Administration. Music to the ears of some venues, while hundreds of others, though, have already closed for good.
This money will enable venue operators to do is to hold on. Already hundreds have gone under and will never come back again. Once these places shutter forever, that's it.
But for now, there is some hope on the horizon for this country's shuttered stages as they wait for the music to play once again.
Now that independent venues and promoters are going to have a lifeline to be able to hold on until it's going to be safe to reopen fully.
I'm Chris Conti.
Chris, thank you. And finally in our lineup today, the pandemic is impacting the blood supply our pets depend on, and there's more demand now as well. How your pet may be able to help.
No payments, no interest for 12 months.
Blood transfusion could save your pet's life, but the pandemic's having a big impact on how much of that blood's available. Blue Pearl Pet Hospitals tells us they saw a 19% drop in the number of pet donations when it comes to blood in 2020 compared to the same time period in 2019. Now, they are worried about this trend continuing as we start 2021.
The hesitancy comes from the interaction that they would have with the hospital staff. We have curbside check-ins and things that are in place, for our patients, and also we could use those for our pets that donate blood as well. That requires very little contact, person-to-person contact.
Blue Pearl provided us with this video you see of pet blood donations. Now, if they don't have enough pets donating, they have to buy blood from commercial public veterinary blood banks instead. And Blue Pearl's chief medical officer tells us a number of factors are driving the demand for pet blood right now, which includes pet ownership being up in this pandemic. And a lot of people, because they're working at home and they're not at their job, well, they're just noticing issues with their animals more. Not to mention owners are willing to spend more when it comes to medical care for their pets.
But because we're treating so many more patients, we have a higher need at the moment. So what we have to do is we have to then be really careful about which patients we use the blood products on. There are some times when we can make a decision of the patient will do okay without it, then we will choose not to do that. But we don't want to ever get into that position.
Now, he says they're not in that position yet. And if you would like to donate your pet's blood, well, it's best to contact your vet, talk it through a bit. You could also call a pet hospital in your area, see if they have any sort of blood donation program. Weight, age, and how healthy your pet is, those are all really important criteria when it comes to donating. Blue Pearl says generally a relatively big dog or cat that's middle-aged with no health conditions is best for donation. Well, doctors are under a ton of pressure, and a new virtual program helps doctors learn and practice the best ways to deliver difficult news to patients and families. Tomorrow, how improv actors are playing a key role in teaching doctors a skill some say you do not learn in medical school.
As we've covered, temperatures, they're stuck in the 30s the next several days. That does go right into the weekend. Maybe we see a little sunshine again by Saturday, 36 or so on Sunday. No major weather systems, but we still need to talk about what happens overnight into Tuesday morning. We'll do that next. The news at 6 starts.